I was invited to do a debate scheduled for tomorrow night, which now is not happening, as it turns out. It just didn't materialize, but we initially agreed to do a debate on this issue at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, big school up the coast, California Polytechnical Institute in San Luis Obispo. And so I said, sure, I'd be glad to do this. And I'm thinking in my mind, how am I going to position myself? I've got all kinds of notes about same-sex marriage challenges and responses. You can find that on our website at str.org. I've got a piece I've written called When the Bride is a Groom, also at str.org. Lots of material there. I did a TV event, a closed circuit TV event I told you about last week, about a week and a half ago. I got my notes for that. I got all this stuff that I could use in a debate, and suddenly I realized I don't need it. Because what is the person who is against Prop 8 going to argue? That same-sex couples don't have the same liberties as heterosexual couples? Well, they can't argue that, because no matter what state they're in, they have the same liberties. That is, they can do all the same things that heterosexual couples can do. They can celebrate a marriage of sorts. That is, they could get hitched. They can walk down the aisle in a church in many cases, or a public venue, and invite their friends and stand before someone and pledge their troth to each other until death do them part. They can go on a honeymoon. They can set up housekeeping. They can arrange to have common inheritance of common property. In many states, they can even adopt children. Not all, but many. In other words, they have exactly the same liberties as everybody else. No one's stopping them. And in fact, I think Americans, and especially Californians, are particularly accommodating. They have largely a live and let live attitude, even those who believe that such unions are immoral. It isn't as if they're in any significant way pushing their morality on other people. They hold their moral view, that is, Christians by and large, evangelicals, hold, many of them, that same-sex unions and homosexuality itself are immoral. But there's no sense that they're pushing that on other people, unless you just simply think that holding one's moral ground on one's own moral opinion, as it applies to other people, is forcing your view on someone else. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody's forcing their view. So there's a tremendous amount of latitude there given people to exercise their liberty and pretty much do what they want in the privacy of their own bedrooms or homes or whatever. I mean, I've heard a lot of people in favor of same-sex marriage says, well, why shouldn't we let people do what they want? Well, they already can. You don't need the law to approve of that. They already can. So there are the same liberties. But there has been an issue of whether the couple, as a couple, has the same, I guess you could say simply put, rights, entitlements that befall them as a couple as befall a heterosexual couple through matrimony. You're right, there is difference. And I've always argued that it's a legitimate distinction because comparing the two couples is like apples and oranges. From the state's perspective, there is no policy reason why they ought to treat same-sex couples like heterosexual couples, because the only reason they mess with heterosexual couples is because long-term monogamous heterosexual relationships, as a rule, as a group, by nature and by design, produce the next generation. And these other relationships don't. So the government just leaves hands off, which is what I thought people wanted to begin with, particularly homosexual people. Stay out of our lives. Now this is just the opposite. In any event, there is an argument that could be made that the government ought not extend the same rights to same-sex couples as they do to heterosexual couples as couples. But that point, of course, no longer needs to be argued in the state of California. That point is moot. If you are in favor of Proposition 8, which defines marriage as between a man and a woman in the Constitution of California, as far as the state is concerned, men and women get married. Others might have partnerships, but men and women get married. Marriage is a male-female thing. If you are in favor of that, your job is really easy now. Because as in the past, no one could argue that same-sex couples didn't have the same liberties. They do. Always have. No one could stop them from doing whatever they wanted to do. Certainly in the state of California. And I only mention that because there are some states that have sodomy laws still in the books that they don't enforce, but not in California. Now they can no longer say they don't have the same rights because they do, according to Family Code, paragraph 297.5. They have all the same rights, protections, benefits as anyone else. What are they clamoring for now? They're clamoring for a name. That's it. They're fighting for a name. That's it. Now, there's something attached to the name that they desperately want, and the thing attached to the name is not rights, not liberties, but respect. It's a way for the state, which is the people, to say there are no differences whatsoever between heterosexual relationships and same-sex relationships, and so then there can be no distinctions of any kind in any way in those relationships. Now, if you were somebody who is leaning against Proposition 8 because you read the bumper stickers and it said equality for all, well, that's already been resolved. If you're concerned about liberty for all, that's already been resolved. This is not at issue anymore. There is complete equality under the law of California and complete liberty to do what people want. That's not at issue. What is at issue is whether we as a country and here as a state are going to continue to make a distinction between, can I say, inconsequential with regards to law and culture, inconsequential consensual relationships, and an institution that is the cornerstone of civilization. When I say inconsequential consensual relationships like domestic partnerships, I'm not saying that any particular relationship is inconsequential to them. I'm saying it's inconsequential to the big scene. Whether or not there are domestic partnerships affirmed by law or not, or whether they are ever formed or not, is irrelevant to civilization. Civilization did just fine for thousands of years without those things. And if we never had them, civilization would still do just fine. Now we have them. People got something they were after. Okay, good for them. But they are inconsequential in the big picture with regards to culture, with regards to civilization. But marriage between a man and a woman is not inconsequential. It is not irrelevant. If we didn't have those kinds of relationships, then culture would disappear. That would be it. And therefore, it seems to me, and there's a lot of other reasons, by the way, I don't have time to get into, it's a good thing we keep these distinct, even if in name only. Because we are acknowledging that there is a relationship that is central to everything, and that is a unique relationship, and that is a relationship between a man and a woman in a long-term monogamous committed relationship, and there is no way any other relationship can match its significance to culture, society, and civilization. And for that reason alone, people are justified in distinguishing between these two relationships, even if the rights and liberties and privileges, protections, benefits are applied, at least in the state of California, equally to each party.